Analyses Atheism.
Hello, and welcome to Gilli Pong, Analyses Atheism. Here I am again, trying to change the mindset of the ones who follow this ideology, and I just wanted to kind of clear up a few things. Just before I start with the next video. The mind is a very interesting field of understanding who we are. What is the mind? When I am meditating now, and how I used to be, let's just go into how I used to be. How I used to be was I was completely rooted in my monkey mind. When I say monkey mind, I am saying the one that is telling me what I need to do next, what I need to think about, what am I forgetting, what is it that I have to focus on, who is it that I have to talk to now. These little triggers that we get when we, for instance, go through a stream on Instagram or on 9gag or on Twitter. You're getting through and you're starting to watch a video. You're reading a thread. You're using this element within to decipher some kind of information. And this is the very thing that is blocking you from meditating. I feel like Sam Harris is tapping into this kind of place. Eckhart Tolle is also on this place, where you are speaking about your awareness. What is the awareness versus being angry? It's like the awareness is here. And if you're aware, your expanded awareness doesn't need the mind, the monkey mind. But if you're angry, you get completely consumed by this impulsive thought machine that we have within us. And I think every human being is attached to in that, unless they have trained in meditation. So over the span of the next few videos, we're going to have an effort to try to describe this, as well as watching someone describe, for instance, this free will. So in this thing that is within us, if you close your eyes and you look up and you try to go away from the frontal lobe, and you feel like you can go into the back of your brain, where the dreams come from. It's really hard because there's like a magnet trying to pull you back into this thing, especially if you're untrained. So you can use these exercises like focusing on the breath when you breathe. And when you breathe out, while you're focusing on your breath, this thing cannot take over. And if you do it alone and you close your eyes and you see what is going on in your head, thinking about something, you're wondering about something, you're remembering something. And if you're traumatized in your last few days, you have had a fight with someone, or there's something that is grabbing your attention, then you can very easily go into this field. But there is a way to stop it. Listening to white noise, listening to meditative music, hearing a singing bowl, doing Aum, you personally. Aum. Because when you are using these sounds and white noise, for instance, There's no thought that can root itself in you, because thoughts become emotions. And that is an art that you can learn when you are an actor. You can invoke a thought that makes you cry, and then slowly your body starts reacting. And it seems like it's like a rider on an elephant. The thinker versus the feelings. So when you are using the thoughts, it can trigger fear and it can trigger anger, and that takes a long time for the body to kind of get out of. So in this video I can start to see that Sam Harris is trying his best to become some kind of a guru in his own words, in his own world. He has a huge following. Most of them are atheists, and he probably has a kind and good heart, and he wants to help people learn how to meditate. I've heard that he has meditation and stuff where he's speaking slowly to people. But it's very scary when you're allowing people to help you meditate if you don't know how to do it yourself. And hypnotism is something that is, you can, allow somebody to hypnotize you. And I don't trust that at all. And that is why I feel that God and having a communication with God is key. His will is good. Satan's will is evil. You have the free will of following. And that is the game. So here we have An Illusion of Free Will by Sam Harris. Another free will video from him. He seems to be very attracted to this topic for some reason.
To say that free will is an illusion is really just the flip side of saying that the self is an illusion. I mean, what people mean by free will is that they are the true, the subject, the inner subject, the conscious experiencer of their experience, is the true author of thought and action and will, right? So like the you feel yourself to be, again, not the totality of your body, not your beliefs about your brain, but the subject, the one who can move his attention from you can direct your attention to a part of your visual field, and then you can decide to get up and go make a cup of tea. Like that, the one who can seize the reins of attention, the one who can decide to change a behavioral plan or to initiate one. It feels like something to be at the center of that causality, and that feeling is what we're calling I. I mean that's this.
The hard thing with Sam Harris is that he sounds extremely right when he speaks. And I just want to bring up Eckhart Tolle here. If you don't know him. Just gonna duplicate this one. And allow you to listen to Eckhart Tolle, who was with Oprah Winfrey, and he created a book called The Power of Now. Let me see. Eckhart Tolle.
Is that they are the true, the subject, the inner subject.
Why are you pressing play when I don't want you to play? Stop it. Okay. He created a book called A New Earth. And he has a following. He has a lot of followers following him. Can humans stay rooted in themselves? So you get that kind of messaging.
Nature and animals are very, very sane compared to most of human life. There's enormous sanity there, because they have not left, they haven't gone out into more and more highly differentiated form and form identification. They haven't left the source, that they haven't gone that far from the source as humans have. And so, yes, there's great, every animal is so rooted in being still compared to neurotic humans. Wow, just look how an animal moves and is itself, completely itself. Nature and animals are very, very sane.
Yeah, this is how he
compared
speaks.
to most.
Can you press plus? Thank you. So this is how he speaks. So you can get what I'm meaning here. There is this element within the human psyche, within the soul, that is always trying to grab one's attention and trying to tell you it is you. It is the self. And it's rooted in desires and what you want to do next. It's deciding, are you cold, are you warm? Should I analyze, the situation? And this is the thing that is blocking you from being still and meditate. I learned this ability to turn this off with the help of people like Sam Harris and Eckhart Tolle. But there is a thing that you have to understand. The devil can also do this. The satanic entities can also do this. And many of the spiritual people, they're going now into these ceremonies where they're taking psychedelics and then they're praying and meditating. But they may not understand that they don't have the understanding of meditation and what prayer means and stuff like that. So they can be extremely attracted to people that are atheistic and trying to control them. In the same way Bill Gates is trying to control people, manipulate people. And that is the evil intention, you see. So I'm here to try to give you an awareness to see the difference between these things. And when somebody is trying to convince you that you do not have a free will, there is a question about the intention. What does he want out of that? Why is he telling you that? And when he speaks of the self, because one of the things that Buddha was always saying is you should get rid of yourself, get rid of your desires. And in a way that is very a helpful exercise, to fast, to not go for the desires that you want to fulfill, especially the ignorant ones. And this joke about praying the gay away, for instance. Pray the gay away. If you're a human doing, and you're always trying to do something to fix the last thing you've done, then you start going in this vicious cycle of not being present, not being aware, not being thankful, not being forgiving, But if you are constantly going after the next thing that you want to satisfy, then you can easily pervert your habits, whether they are perverted into eating only cinnamon buns or going only for the next sexual desire that you want to fulfill. And then you're walking up a hierarchy of this no longer satisfies me, so I should go for the next kind of fetish or perverted way of living. So the act of trying to get out of the porn isn't, for instance, to do something else. It's about stop doing altogether. And how long can you hold that without, how long can you stop drinking alcohol? Are you counting the days since you last had a drink of alcohol? Are you counting every push-up that you do? Can you do push-ups without counting? These are all exercises in letting go of this mechanism within that is trying to control you. But I feel like he is reprogramming that by talking about the illusion of self and the illusion of free will. Two sides of the same coin, he says. But within there is an illusion of self, but without there is a self. So you can't just let go of your ego. You have to enhance your ego and make it a little bit better.
Feeling of being a self. And when you penetrate that illusion, then you notice that everything is just happening all by itself. It does not nullify the difference between voluntary and involuntary action. I mean, there's still a difference between deciding you want to reach for a glass of water versus, inadvertently knocking the glass over, or having a tremor that you can't control.
The thing with Sam Harris is he is pretending to be this. He doesn't have the calmness to get the information through. He's pretending to be like Eckhart Tolle. And Eckhart Tolle is a very interesting person, because I actually saw him live in Oslo. And I saw him on stage. And his whole jig is not having the monkey mind. He's not thinking. He's presence. He's just here with a gaze that doesn't blink almost. And he had achieved that by sitting on a bench. There was no God in his speech. There's no God. I have barely heard him speak of that. And that's, I think, why Oprah Winfrey is so attracted to his books. Because I don't think she has a very clear connection to God, to be honest. But that's just my opinion. So, yes, he's pretending to be this Buddha, this guru. We can go into the gurus. And Sadhguru is another specimen of a person, an Osho too. Osho has completely shut down the thinking, and he is like a person who is completely relaxed. And this is just a way of doing things to control and manipulate others if you're not careful. And that's why clear connection to God, who has the purest intentions, is key within.
Right, and you're not consciously initiating. Those are all differences. I mean, the one difference is, in my reaching for a glass of water, it's preceded by the thought that I want to take a drink of water, and the felt intention to reach. If my arm was just moving and I wasn't feeling any associated intention, well, then I would feel like I had alien hand syndrome. I mean,
notice the guy on the right. He's sitting in the lotus posture. He's looking really good. He's probably meditating, probably taking a bit of psychedelics. And the psychedelics are scary because that's part of the satanic practice. MK Ultra is one of them. To completely deprogram a human being to have multiple, instead of one self, you have many selves within. And this is like, when you go into this is occult practice. This is Jungian practice. And I feel like Sam Harris is probably taking a lot of psychedelics, but he doesn't have a clear connection to God, so he is just intellect without God.
There are neurological conditions like this. I mean, that's what alien hand syndrome is, where the hand just starts behaving in ways where the inner subject doesn't feel any associated intention, and so it's like it's like a foreign arm, and it's as you can imagine, quite disconcerting.
You see, he's going into subjects that are scary for everyone. Like, imagine your hand trying to kill you. It's a subject of horror movies. So it's extremely important to have a very clear understanding of what is being said. And when you're an atheist and you don't have a belief in the good God, then you're opening up a door to allowing people to manipulate you. especially the rich and powerful ones.
So getting rid of free will doesn't obviate any of those distinctions. It's just it gets rid of this fundamental illusion that there's there's a subject in the driver's seat who can do the willing, who can do the desiring, who can initiate the next thought, as though who stands upstream of all of these all these patterns that produce intentions and further actions. So, but again, the illusion is so powerful for people that they feel that there really is a mystery here, where it's so like they know that they have free will because they know that they are selves, right? And they know that they can decide to do one thing versus the other, and they know that it feels a certain way to do that. And so the buck really seems to stop here in my conscious sense of my own subjectivity and agency. And then they're told, okay, but no, actually, in the dark, behind all that, there's this whole concatenation of causes for which you're totally unresponsible. I mean, you didn't pick your parents, you didn't pick your genes, you didn't pick all of the influences to the nervous system that got built on the basis of your genetic inheritance. So literally,
This is one of the things, like his belief system is that he's a monkey and he has been evolved with genes into this state. No God, no creator, no one who has created you in his image mentality. And when you're there, then you can just say whatever the heck you think, and that can become your reality. And there's no self. And the self may be female, or maybe I'm a male, or maybe I'm neither. Maybe I'm non-binary. And this spawns a lot of, if you're a psychologist and you're listening to this, you're like, maybe just tell me, what is it that hurt you, Sam Harris, when you were young? What do you remember the first time you were angry at your parents? That's where they would want to go. They wouldn't want to listen to a person talk like this. But he's given a platform where he's speaking to a person who is trying to get rid of themselves and their desires because they have read a few Buddha books or done these things. Like, I was almost in that field. But it is kind of scary. My dog is waking up here. She expects to get some cuddles. But where was I? I was almost going into that field because I had a difficult relationship with God, and I had to forgive myself, and I had to forgive my father and mother, and I had to have my mother forgive my father, and my father forgive my mother in my consciousness. Because the right hemisphere is kind of like my mother, while my left is like my father. The masculine versus the feminine. And if they are fighting because of divorce when I was young, then there's no connection to the source, to the God, to the reality. And Eckhart Tolle is speaking about a source, which is this Kali energy, this minus, this earth, this thing that we live on. But there's a source that is higher, this plus. And the masculine, that's why it's masculine. And we are meeting in the middle, in the heart. You see? And if the connection here is severed, then you can go and awaken the goat within and become like Aleister Crowley or any of these Satanists that have been famous. And you can become immensely powerful when you go there. And you can write books and create webinars and make all these things work. And you start to look at witchcraft and you start to look at Jung and you start to, because you become very intelligent when you take these psychedelics. So it's scary.
like everything, the fact that you have a brain, the fact you have a brain in precisely this conformity, the fact that it was, tuned by all of its collisions for all these years with, an environment, you did none of that, right? And yet that is all of that whole mechanism is 100% of the explanation for the next thing you do, right? So when I have to think of a rock star and I think of John Bon Jovi, in what sense, like the conscious subject in me is just waiting to hear what comes out of the dark, right?
You see how dangerous his language is. The conscious subject in me. It's like he's disassociating who he is from who he is, and as he's using languages to do this, and this is like, dude, relax on the psychedelics, bro.
It's like I'm just. It's like I went for. It's like I pushed the deliver rock star name button.
Yeah, but I constantly using I. Who is I? Who is I in this thing? If you don't have free will, who is I? Who is this I you speak of, Samharis? Who is Samharis? This conscious subject that can do all these different things.
And the truth is, there's no place to stand where my authorship really is visible, because, like, upstream of that choice was, well, why was I looking for a rock star? I could have been thinking of something else.
You see, why was I looking for why I? What's I? Who's this I you speak of? If you disassociate this I from who you are, and there's no conscious thought, you're just a victim of the circumstances that you're constantly in. Who's this I then?
Else, like the category rock star was not something I consciously initiated. Everything is being promoted out of the dark on some level. I mean, you can't think.
Whoa. This is the scary part, and this makes me wonder if he is a Satanist, because it's coming from the dark. He probably means it in a very, nice way. But if you think about it, why is it coming from the dark? Why isn't it coming from the light? The light is wisdom. The light is information that is... Darkness is the absence of light. Darkness, like as soon as you shine a light on something, you see it, and the shadows go away. But if it's coming from the darkness, are you speaking of the darkness when you close your eyes? But is it really dark when you close your eyes? Isn't that's where the dream come from? Or your desires come from? The dark.
Think a thought until you think it, right? Like there would be an infinite regress. You can't. At a certain point, something just emerges out of this mystery that's at your back, as a matter of consciousness. And we know as a matter of causality that it pushes all the way back to, again, your genome and every prior influence. So at what point can you claim to be responsible for all of that? And when you pay attention to what it's like to be you, you can notice that you don't even feel responsible for it. I mean, in some sense, you're always in the presence of a mystery. Now, that's not to say that it doesn't matter what you do and what you decide and what kind of person you are. I mean, like it's not like everyone gets off the hook by reason of insanity. It's like it's still possible.
Disassociation is a mental process where a person disconnects from their thoughts, feelings, memories, or sense of identity. It can be experienced for a short time while something traumatic is happening or as a way of coping with stressful experiences. Dissociative disorders include dissociative amnesia, depersonalization disorder, a dissociative identity disorder. Disassociation is a break in how the mind handles information and can affect a person's sense of identity and perception of time. Disassociation is also the thing that a abused child can experience. They disassociate for a while the abuse is taking place. You see how dangerous these topics are and why he's just bringing them up randomly in a podcast. There's something going on here that isn't supposed to be spoken and introduced as some kind of a tool to handle reality. It's a broken way to do so.
To be ethical versus unethical, and to be compassionate versus, malignantly selfish. I mean, all of these differences matter because they have very different consequences in the world, and they link up to.
Notice the speech. To be compassionate versus being malignantly selfish. It's not just selfish. Malignantly selfish. Malignant. Scary shit. Sorry.
To very different
Stuff.
kinds of minds and motivations. And but at bottom, an insight into the illusoriness of free will does change a few things ethically. And one thing it changes is the basis for hating other people really does go away. Because on some level, you begin to view people as more analogous to forces of nature, or as wild animals or malfunctioning robots. Or people who are behaving bad.
Maybe because they are just like you. And if you raise your awareness and intelligence, you can understand it from their perspective. Maybe there's something that happened in them that you can imagine that you're walking in their shoes, have empathy for them, and therefore stop hating them and forgive them. Not a malignant robot or a random event that happened. Come on, dude. You keep spewing your own ideas about what's going on, and they're not even good ideas, man.
Badly, on some level, are doing precisely the only thing they could do in that moment. And the idea that they could have done otherwise or should have done otherwise, it's not that it's totally inadmissible, but when you begin saying you should have done otherwise, you could have done otherwise, what you're really admonishing a person about is not the past, but the future. I mean, you're trying to, insofar as a person can be changed by your criticism and your argument and your reaction to their misbehavior, the reason to react in that way and to feel the validity of reacting in that way is to change them for the future. You can't go back into the past and change what they did. So if you're and this is very clear with raising kids. Like, you want kids to grow up to be honest, compassionate, well-integrated members of society. So they don't start out that way, and so you have to keep saying, okay, you shouldn't have done that. Next time, do this. But you're not imagining at each stage along the way that they could really be different than they were at that stage. And ultimately, that's true for even quintessentially evil adults, right? Like, you're just the mustache twirling psychopath who murdered lots of people because he likes to murder people. Well, okay, you still want to put that person in prison because you want to keep everyone safe from him, but you have to recognize that on some level, once you get rid of the illusion of free will, you recognize that that person is basically analogous to, a great white shark or a grizzly bear or a tiger or any other, system that is intrinsic.
I kind of get what he's trying to say here, but it's so distorted with all his ideas that it doesn't make any sense. If you have empathy for a serial killer, it's like this video I showed you from Human, the documentary, where a man finds love for the first time because he's been raised to believe pain is love, and the amount of pain I give to someone I love and how much pain they can take from me and still love me is showing how much love is, how much worth love is, or whatever. So I get what he's trying to say here, but when you're using this disassociation tactic, you can justify killing other people. Because Sam Harris said this. Yeah, it isn't my fault. I don't have free will. I was traumatized as a child. Or this person hurt me so much. So it's very scary when you're taking away this element that we have, which is free will, which is real. It's not an illusion. You can follow that free will, or you can be subjected to other people's free will, or the government's will, or God's will, the highest hierarchy of will. And if you don't know God's will, because you perverted it with your own versions of God or concepts of God, then you are getting easily attracted to the will of the one who wants you to do evil stuff with your life. And that is a real entity too. Scary. And many of these people, philanthropists, sociopathic, Bill Gates, whatever, they are actually praying to that entity. That is the entity that gave them this power that they have gotten.
Physically dangerous to be close.
Because they're not specially made genetically to have this.
Mom, want more pizza?
You see?
To.
Yeah.
Like there's this. He's not available to argument. He's fundamentally incorrigible, just as a tiger would be. A wild tiger would be. So it doesn't mean you can't try to avoid that person, put that person in prison, find a cure for that person. If we ever get a cure for psychopathy, we would use that. But it's not that.
He's equating his consciousness to that of a tiger. There's a huge difference between the consciousness of a wild great shark or a wild tiger and you or me. It's a huge difference, and if he doesn't understand that because he's a Darwinist, then God help the people who believe this stuff. They're looking at him as an icon or an idol to worship because he's so smart and articulate. I have to search for everything he says, every other word, and he's always making me more smart. And I love taking psychedelics or smoking some weed and watching him. Oh, it's just the same. You worship someone. You worship Jordan Peterson. You worship Eckhart Tolle, Oprah Winfrey, or some Hollywood star, or a great writer, Dostoevsky, or Jung. You start worshipping these idols. But they're always, the best ones are always pointing somewhere, but the weak-minded ones always look at the finger and start worshipping the finger instead of the thing that he's pointing to.
That it doesn't mean it's not a problem, but it's not a problem of free will being misused, right? Like no one picked even if you think people have souls, right? Like no one picked their soul. No, there's no psychopath walking around with a psychopathic soul who's responsible for having made his soul psychopathic. Right? It's like he's unlucky. He got a bad soul, right? If
What does he say?
of free will being misused, right? Like no one picked their, even if you think people have souls, right? Like no one picked their soul. No, there's no.
Okay. He doesn't believe he has souls. So he uses the even if you believe you have a soul. That's not about belief. That's something that is just, scientifically proven. And then I mean wholly scientifically proven. There is something called holy science. Yeah, try searching for that. Try to read that text. Try to figure that one out.
It's not a problem of free will being misused, right? Like no one picked their, even if you think people have souls, right? Like no one picked their soul. No, there's no psychopath walking around with a psychopathic soul who's responsible for having made his soul psychopathic. Right? It's like
the absence of soul makes you psychopathic somehow. When you ignore your soul, when you have been traumatized so much in your life that your soul becomes this thing that you can't possibly believe in, because that would prove the existence of God. And why have I suffered so much? Why can't I forgive? What I've learned in my life, if I try to put on my oomph, is that there are soul-enhancing exercises you can do. And then there are soul-depleting exercises you can do. And this is what I teach my children, because I have experimented with it myself, and I have found out that this much is true. So, soul enhancing that invigorate your soul, that make you feel good, that make you feel bliss, that make you feel relaxed. Fasting, meditating, praying, walking barefooted in nature, doing gardening, singing, playing an instrument, reading beautiful poetry and beautiful books that are not filled with some psycho Stephen King telling you that now this 11-year-old child is getting killed. Just focus on what you're reading and learn that there's like if you watch horror movies for 20 hours, you're going to feel horrible. It's going to deplete the essence of your soul. If you watch porn and jack off for 20 hours, you're going to feel horrible. And if you do it every day for 20 years, you're going to feel worse, horrible, because you've deleted the resources of your body. So there are soul-enhancing and soul-depleting. It's scary. He has very low IQ when it comes to spiritual matters, and being a psychologist is one of them. He shouldn't be around people that have experienced trauma, telling them this nonsense.
He's unlucky. He got a bad soul, right? If souls exist,
you see how dismissive this person is. If souls exist. Come on.
Without souls,
no idea what you're talking about.
A bad environment and a bad, contingent neurology. So
it creates so much compassion on one hand as well, because you look at someone like Hitler or the mustache twirling sociopath, psychopath, murderer, And if you you spoke in your book Free Will, you give these examples. If you then discovered, on the other hand, that there was a brain tumor pushing upon someone's amygdala, that would completely change how you view them. But if it's essentially that all the way down, right?
Yeah, and you can just, without even referencing the neurology of it, just look at the timeline of somebody in somebody's life. It's like you take Hitler. Okay, well, Hitler is, you know, the quintessentially evil person who everyone should just kill, right? It's like we wish that the plots against Hitler, trying to assassinate him, had actually worked, right? So and they were completely justified, right? But at what point in his life would it have been justified to kill Hitler? I mean, killing the 25-year-old Hitler before he has done anything especially egregious? Well, you know he's going to become the 40-year-old Hitler who's just awful. You might.
If you go back in time, this hypothetical time machine. But if you know him, you wouldn't know he would become Hitler when he's 25. Doesn't make any sense. He's just telling stories to tell stories to sound important and smart. It's nonsense what he's speaking of.
I want to stop that, but I mean, I think even Louis C.K. has a joke about this. Like, do you go back and kill Hitler in his crib? Like, like
Baby Hitler?
You're going to kill a baby? Like, are you really going to kill a baby? Like, it's a baby. Like, now we're talking about a baby. Okay, the truth is, Hitler the baby is just unlucky. It's like, it's a baby who's...
It's not just unlucky. You can't just strip off your role. Like, Hitler had a role. He wasn't just a victim of circumstances his entire life. He acted, he did actions, and he suffered because of his actions. And a lot of people suffered because of his actions. And that's just not because he got a bad rap in the dice of souls, you know. Or if you believe in souls. It's like, come on. This guy is a complete lunatic and he's pretending to be smart. Do you not get it? Do you not comprehend it? It's scary how he speaks. And he's propped up on these stages talking to these people. And this Robert Sapolsky, who the heck is that guy too? Why are they so focused on telling people they don't have free will? Why are they going against and blaspheming against God? Scary stuff. But it's important, and I think I have managed to somehow articulate what I had to say here. And I hope you get it. But it's time to shine. Let's glow.
Analyses Atheism.